This is the turntable we're going to use. I picked this up a couple of months ago at an auction and it was in pretty good shape. I cleaned up the top a little bit. It had water in it, but everything cleaned up pretty good. I took it apart and drained everything out, cleaned all the parts, and reassembled it, filled it with hydraulic oil. I think it's going to do the job pretty good. So I've got to pick this up because this thing is probably close to 250, 300 pounds, certainly more than I can lift. So I made this out of some old transmission parts and spare stock, just welded a bar. And we'll just set this on here. Oh, by the way, these Harbor Freight pallets, the little wheel carts, the wheels on them absolutely suck. It's practically useless as far as rolling around goes. So I got my vise mounted on the turntable here. I was starting to indicate to get the position so with the 1-inch stock that I put in here that the center rotation is in the center of the stock, which I've got that accomplished now. But I ran into some trouble coming around. The end of the vise sticks so far off here to get this centered that when I bring the table around and I turn it, the arms on this are taller than the bottom of the vise, or taller than the table, and I hit the bottom of this coming around. So I've got another project in mind. I'm not going to do it right now because my focus is to get the tram tool done. But I think in the near future I want to make a tool for here that I can turn this when the vise is on, because I'm sure I'm going to come up with this situation again. So I've got this stock left over from a previous project, and I think what I'm going to do is cut a little bit of this off and make this so I can slip it on there. I'll bore this to fit that and then drill these holes in the end of it. And on the back side, I'm not going to bore all the way through. I want to drill a hole that I can broach out to fit this, which is, this one is the 1/2-inch drive, for just a regular ratchet wrench. That way I can get under here, just use a ratchet wrench to turn it, or if I want a little more freedom to get away from the back device, I can just get back here with an extension and control it that way. It'll make it much easier to use when I've got a situation like this. So that's a future project coming up. So there's a lot of measurements involved in getting this cut right. I've got my drawings done here, and I've got, I think, all the measurements that I need to get this positioned in here. So I've already set my angle, but I'm going to need to set the depth here because I need this edge to rotate around the center of the turntable with the correct position. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be coming in here with the end mill, and I need it to just touch the side here. I'm not going to cut into it, just touch the side and touch the back side. So this I should already have centered up in the turntable so that those two sides will touch as I rotate it around. But now I need to set how far into the drawers this is. I've got the rough angle. I've just roughed this in with an angle meter. But what I need to do here now is we're going to be cutting this down at an angle and creating this rounded shape here. Well, it's hard to see on this drawing, but this is a curved surface that wraps around it. So if you look here, the red line like that and like that, that is the block. This angle here should match this here, and with the end mill coming straight down, it will cut this at the right angle that it will be in relation to the block. So we're going to touch the side, and I'm going to get this corner down here find out where that corner is, and then I've got an offset measured in here, and I'll know how much to step in, and when I step in that appropriate amount, I should be able to just rotate the table. But this has to be the right depth in, so when I do that step back, that when I start on the side, it's going to make the cut and just come in to hit the top surface up here the way I want without taking too much, and then come back and be flush with the other side. So I got my edge finder here, and we're going to try to locate the edge here and set the depth. So the first step I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate the table 90 degrees, and we're going to touch off on the face of this, and this is 1 inch wide, so 25.4 millimeters. Half of that would be 12.7. So we're going to touch, and we'll know that this surface will be 12.7 from the center of the table, and that will get the table on the machine set appropriately to here, and we'll zero out at that. Then I'll come back, we'll touch here. Okay, so I have the vise turned now, and we're going to touch off, and we'll establish our center line. Okay, so I'm going to enter in, this is going to be minus 17.7. It would be 12.7 from center to the edge here, and 5 millimeter for half of the ball. So now if I go to 0, we should be halfway up on here. And we're just going to do a sanity check just to make sure that I got it right. Okay, and that is in the center. So now I'm going to turn the vise back, and we need to get this corner with it turned at 15 degrees, the angle here at 15 degrees, just touch, and it's not going to be at center, because this corner, when it touches, the vise needs to be back 32.87 millimeter, and that's so that we can hit the corner here. I don't know if I explained that quite clear. I've rotated back now. So right now the table in the y-axis is in 0. So I'm going to move back. So I've got the offset on here from center line to, and that would be the rotation of this part when it's finished, out to the corner is 31.87 millimeters. And I need to add 5 millimeter for half the diameter of that ball. So I got 37.87 millimeters. So we're going to back the table up that much. Now we come back, put this roughly in the center. And now we're going to come up here. I'm going to maintain this angle. I'm going to use an angle block to do this. And we'll get this corner to just touch on the ball, on the halfway up the ball. Now I'm going to have to do that visually because to manipulate all this, there's just no way I can get everything held in position and find the center with the indicator moving up and down. So I'm going to have to do that visual that this corner touches in the halfway point. I'm a little bit too far in. I gotta redo it. Okay, I'd say I'm right on it, because just putting a little pull on the table here is enough to change the indicator. So I'm right on the edge of it. Let's back off, so just till I see the light there. Yep, okay, so that's right where I want to be, right there. Okay, now our last measurement, because the milling operation, this is going to be the orientation for hitting this edge here. So the vise is going to swing from the tail end of it facing that way, come around to here, the front, and over to this side for the opposite face, 90 degrees from the way that I set up the three measurements I just did. So now the last thing I need to do is I need to set the x-axis of the table so we get a 0 for the center point here. It's the same measurement I just did this way. I need to repeat it this way. 37.87, and the x will touch off here. I don't need to change any height. We just go till we touch it, and I'll punch in the 37.87. And that will put my 0 right in the center of the rotation of what this part will be. And also, once I do that, when I cut my offset to get the round correctly, everything should line up right to it. Not sure if you'll be able to read this or not, but hopefully it will show. That should put me on 0 when I come back. Just make sure it looks right. I think I'm going to have some complications when I do the drill through the center of this. I'm not sure if I have enough height here, but we'll see how that works when I get there. Okay, so I'm going to have to change this out, and I'm going to change the adapter here. I'm going to put my end mill in, and I think we're ready to start doing that cut. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this as a line cut. So I'm going to turn the vise to face that way, and we'll touch on this side of the part, and we'll rotate around this way. Okay, so I forgot about one step I got to do here. Before I round the back of this, I need to cut the top here. So we've got this part across the top. Remember, this bar is the red line like that, so the top would slope down like that. So I need to cut this flat before I can do the round, because I don't have enough depth here to cut from this corner all the way down to the end there. It's just not long enough, so I have to cut the flat first and then cut down to do the round on the back. So This is real close. My table is all the way down there, down at the bottom. I've got just enough clearance here that I'll be able to do the measurement here from the top corner and bring it up and deck that off to where it should be. Once I touch the top here, I need to raise it another 9.739 millimeters. That looks like I just touched right there. Okay, so now I have my height in here. And I set it as a negative number with the offset because I'm going to put 0 as the deck height up there because I'm going to need that for other measurements. Okay, so there's our first cut. Now I'm going to set up to do the rotation. So I'm going to swing it around this way. That'll make it a climb cut. I'm going to pause for a minute. I got to put a respirator on because I'm getting a lot of really fine aluminum dust floating out of there, so I don't want to breathe that in. I'm actually beyond the cutting fluids here. I may have to do this in 2 steps. So the fluid actually technically starts here. It does carry up, but that's not really cutting area up there. The sharp part's down to here. I'm going to drop the table down. I'm probably going to have to do it 2 passes. I'm going to get it down below the edge of the cutter, so I'm completely in the cutter. Okay, so that should do it there. And I'll just have to do a 2nd pass to get the bottom. Do 2 passes. I'm going to go further down. Okay, this should cut a little better now. There we go. that bit right there. Oh, looks good. So I got to turn back because I wanted to continue as a climb cut. I'm going to rotate back. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll get this lower part, and we should be good at that point. I've got the spindle is dropped down now. I'm back in position to start. I've got just barely enough length to do here. I've only got about 1/2 millimeter between the holder here and the top of the surface. And down here, it's actually a little bit short when I'm at this position, but I don't think it's going to be a problem because I'm going to have a couple of millimeters cut off as I cut this flat down here. The section that is hanging below the end mill here is in this section that's going to be cut out in a later operation. So it should not be a problem. So this side I can run through pretty quick because we basically did it. Just bring it down to finished size. The other side I got to go a little slower because it's going to be a full cut. think that does it. So I think this operation worked out pretty well. I do need to do something about this handle because of the clearance problem under the vise, and I'm sure I'm going to be coming up against this type of operation again. So that definitely is going to be a future project that I'll probably be doing sooner or later, because I don't want to deal with this, having to manipulate this under here with the crank and trying to catch it with this just to turn it, and that's why it took so long to get this to rotate, because I'm just doing like a third of a turn at a time. So I'm going to set up for the next stop here, and then I'll come back. That next stop is going to be, we're going to cut this slot down here where it comes down. So we've got to drop down from our reference up here, which would be the top surface here. I've got the distance from here out to the outer edge. That'll give me the start. On another paper, I've got the center of the hole here, and that's where we'll stop. And this, see if I gotta go bigger. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this with a different tool. I'm gonna rough it with this, I think, first. I'll just cut in here and clean it out, and then I'll come down with a boring bar to do the actual sweep back there. I think I have everything in position here. Our reference point is right in the center where this is going to pivot on here when it's assembled. So there's going to be a hole drilled through here eventually. So the top surface and right in the center here. I need to take this, we're going to cut back at this level, which is 80.24 millimeters down from the top reference surface, and we're going to come in till we stop 125 millimeters out from the reference point up here, that pivot point. That'll be the stop point. That accounts for the diameter of this and leaves me approximately 5 millimeters that I'll be taking out with the boring bar. I think I'm going to run into the same issue I had before. I got to do this in 2 stages. I'm going to drop down, cut back, and then do a second step here. to cut those edges off. That's getting to be a pain. Alright, let's go for that second cut. So I think that completes this op, and I'm ready to change out. I think I'll do the boring operation first, do the drills next. I have to get both those completed before we pull this out because I need the reference points for all those. After that, we'll be starting with new reference points. So I've only done a couple operations with the boring bar in the past, so I'm not sure what the standard procedure is for setting the diameter, but this is what I'm going to do. And I just did it once, but I realized I set it for the wrong diameter. I set it for 25.4 millimeter diameter, and it's supposed to be bigger than that. It's 40 millimeter diameter. I got to figure out my offsets here. I'll come right back in a minute, and we'll readjust it. But what I'm going to go by is I have the center of this part going this way is already in the DRO. We haven't moved this yet. So I know that with this being 25.4 millimeters wide, we've got 12.7 to the surface, and I can set the distance from the center of the part to the center of the spindle to duck out at 12.7 millimeter, and then I can get the correct diameter for the boring bar. Okay, so just starting that up, I could hear it tick, so I know we're there. So the next step now, I need to find my Z height to where I just touch off down here, and that way I can come back and find it again when I come down doing the cut. Turning roughly about 500 RPM on that. I think I just heard that touch. Yeah, okay, that's it. I just barely touched it there. And now I get to zero out my Z height. That'll be the reference for the bottom here. Okay, the center of this, which is what's marked in the DRO, to the center of the rotation of this boring operation is going to be 127 millimeters. And that's also going to be the center of the indicator when this is done. I just set my x-axis here, but I think I'm going to back up a little bit because I'm looking at it, and with the boring bar over here, the amount of bite I think is a little too much to do all at once. So I'm going to do, I think, at least 2 passes here to cut this out, because I'm going to use the Z and cut down into it. Doing it right there, but I don't think I want to do it in 2 passes. I'm still going to do 3 here, because I think this is about as much of a cut as I want to do. I'll probably stop about 1/10 of a millimeter before the bottom, do the last little bit by hand. Well, I overshot by a few hundredths of a millimeter, but that's so small, I don't think it'll be an issue. Let's see what it looks like. Actually, no, I didn't overshoot. Almost looks like something moved here. According to what I'm seeing here, there's at least a millimeter left there, probably 2 millimeters left to go. I don't know if that pushed up. It's almost like something pushed up. I don't think that moved. No, that looks straight. I'm going to double check the tightness on that. I'm going to touch off again. I'm not sure what happened, what moved here, but something either moved, either that or what I thought was a witness mark may not have been a witness mark. It may have been an old cutting mark from something I did earlier. So that time we got it. Now we're flush with the bottom here. So I'm going to be cutting it real close with the jaws here. I'm looking at my offset here. I think I've got enough room, but it's going to be real close. Okay, so we're going to do our second cut now. Okay, and that should do that part. I just barely touched the top with that. Didn't leave any marks, but a little bit of an oops. Okay, so we have our hole drilled here, but the next step, let's see, let me show it. This is the gauge, the indicator that's going to go in there. So that'll go in that hole. If you look on the back here, that has a little ridge there. So in the drawings, I called for a step down in there of 2 millimeters to accommodate that, and it's supposed to be 13.5 millimeters. I don't have an end mill that'll do that straight down. In fact, I don't even have a drill that size. I do have a 14 insert end mill. It's not going to hurt to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to do it with a 14. Just a little change in there, but it's not going to affect anything. So I don't have a DRO set up on the quill as of yet. It is planned for the future, but that's the one axis I didn't do. I have one for the knee, but not for the quill. So I've locked the quill again. I'm not going to use the quill to do the drilling. I'm going to raise the knee up into it. So the first step here, I'm going to touch off, so I just touched that surface. I'll zero out at that point, and then I'll raise the knee the 2 millimeters that I need to go. Alright. So I got Z0. So we have the holes on this side done, or the hole and the counter bore that goes in there. And I'm ready to do this one, but I've run into a problem. I don't have enough reach. The table is all the way down, and the drill bit just won't clear the top here. What I'm going to do, I'll have to drill it from the other side. When I take this out, I can flip it, and when we do the work on the other side, we'll just drill from that side. But I still got to do the counter bore up here. This one won't center cut the way it's made, so I'm going to come in with a smaller end mill that will center cut, that I know can fit in here, and we'll punch this down enough that I can do my counter bore here. I'll drill the counter bore, and then we'll be ready to flip this part over. I'll probably everything on the other side I'll hold off onto the next day I'm out here, but I want to get this done before I shut everything down, because I don't want to lose my zeros on the DRO overnight when it's shut off. So we're up to the end mill here. I need to touch off, that way I can establish my depth here. Okay, so that looks like it just touched there. I got it zeroed. So my drawings say I got to go in 10 millimeters. it needs a little juice in there. Okay, I don't have enough room to put the collet on first and then put the end mill in, so I do this where I slip it through, kind of come up on the side, and that it gives me some extra clearance doing it that way. Okay, and again, I'll have to touch off on this. I'm going to go with 700 RPM. I believe that just touched. And we go in 10 millimeter. Oh, I should get some oil on there. So that completes this side. Next I'll be flipping this over, and I think I'm going to call it a day at this point. I'll do the other side another day. I might as well cut the video at this point, and we'll make this a multi-part series. Hopefully 2, maybe 3, and it'll be done at that. But we've got a good bit done here, so I think I can finish this up in one more session. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and found it entertaining or educational. If so, please consider hitting like or subscribe. It does help give me incentive to continue producing more. Thank you.